Bellevue Baptist Church, let's all stand. Song number 534, Heavenly Sunlight. Sing it out on that first verse. Maybe we practiced at a lower thing. I think we need to go up a thing. Here we go. All right, on that second verse, shadows around me. You can tell I'm a musician. Up a thing. Here we go. Be seated.
Amen. Well, good morning. It's a special day today. Multiple reasons. First, we have the Tallaritas with us. Very excited for that. And how long has it been now? Has it been 2 years? Yeah, it's about 2 years since they've left us. No, but it's fun because they're not just coming back as to say hi, although that's certainly part of the fun. But coming back as missionaries, church planters, and Wheeling, Illinois, and very excited about that. To hear about that today. And hear about some of the journey and kind of what has transpired since they left to where they are now. They come back with another kid. It's great, and yeah, so super cool. Excited to hear about that. Of course, we've got potluck, so already you can smell the food, right? It's torturous, but we're going to have that after the main service, and then we have baptisms today as well. Directly after the main service. And so we were going to have three. It was going to be Evie and Holly and then Miss Donna. And then we got a call. Miss Donna, in the nursing home that she's at, they had several people came down with COVID, and so she is quarantined. And so that's not going to happen today, but hopefully, if she clears next week or maybe the week after. So anyways, pray for Miss Donna that she doesn't get COVID. That would be good. And trying to think of kind of other announcements we'll have maybe next hour. And maybe here's what we'll do. Brother Nick, if you could come, just kind of introduce your family. I know most people know you, but not everybody. And figure out kind of how much intro you want to do before we get to hear from your wife, which is really what we want to hear, right? And then you can kind of finish out that story. And so what I asked the Tallaritas to do this morning in the growth class hour is really just a long update, if you will, in kind of testimony of where they're at, so we can kind of be up to date. We've read their letters, but there's a chunk of time, especially in there, like that, it would be good to kind of be clued in on and get fully up to date. And then he's going to preach in the worship hour and then in the afternoon service as well. So, Brother Nick, it's good to have you here.
Well, good morning. I'm glad to be here with everybody today. So my name is Nick Tallarita, and I'm originally from South Chicago, and my wife is from Ypsilanti, Michigan, in that area over there. We met when we were at college there at Heartland Baptist Bible College, and then ever since then we had Grayson while we were still here on staff, and then had Weston when we were on staff there in Texas. So whenever we have our next kid, we're going to have kids from every state around the country. But so Grayson is just about to turn 3 in June, which is insane. And then Weston is 11 months. He'll be turning 1 in March. And so we're just really excited. It's fun having kids in the ministry because they are the greatest tools to win souls. They really are. But Aaliyah, if you would make your way up here. We've just had a lot of the benefits of church planning and being in the ministry and everything has been that I've gotten to spend a lot of time with my boys. And one of the biggest joys about the 2 boys is Grayson, especially whenever we go out. We started a thing right before winter hit, and that was we'd walk around the lake by our house and just hand out tracts. And Grayson was so excited about it. So one of the biggest blessings as a dad is to see little Grayson, who's just over 2, and he's walking around and he's going, Daddy, I want another track. I want another track. Because he just wants to hand it to everybody he sees. And so it's just a blessing to get to serve God with my family and have them all with me. And so Aaliyah, to just kind of update them on how it's been for you since here.
I'm sure that Nick will probably go over most of what I'm going to tell you. But so like he said, we're up in Wheeling. When we first moved there, we kind of got settled in for like a month. And then that's when we started the Bible study and started to figure out, okay, how can we reach people in this area? So we started door knocking, and we door knocked now. We've door knocked pretty much all of Wheeling, and we weren't getting much response from that. Like, we talked to people and here and there, but nobody really came from that, and we got a little discouraged. So we were talking and trying to figure out ways that we could actually reach people and try to build relationships. And so it was probably 3 months ago now. Yeah. I was doing my devotions in the morning, and I was like, Lord, if you could just bring me to one person who just wants to hear about you. And that night, we were going to pick up something from a Facebook group, and I met a lady, and we got out of the car, and the first thing she said to Grayson was, it looks like God blessed you with great parents. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, you mentioned the Lord. That's an opportunity. So we ended up talking to her for over an hour just about the Lord, and she said she was a professing Catholic. Her name is Anne. But in her own words, she said, I'm technically a Catholic, but I'm just open to everything, and that's really good for us. So then we got to talk with her and kind of figure out a little bit of what they believe, and that just started a really good relationship with her. She has a 2-year-old daughter, and so about once a week or 2 times a week, we meet up with her for play dates. Nick just was able to meet her husband, Dave, like 2 weeks ago. And so we just started a really good friendship with them, and they say that this coming Wednesday they're going to try to come to the Bible study, which we are so excited about because that'll give us an opportunity to sit down with them and kind of figure out, okay, what actually do you believe, and just to get to know them a little bit better. And so from that interaction, we kind of figured out, the best way to build relationships in this area really is to start with our kids, because moms especially are always looking for more friends and for play dates. So we've done a lot of going to the library, going to parks, going to a park in the mall, and just kind of anywhere that moms will be with their kids. And I found that the biggest ministry, I guess you could say, that I've been able to be a part of is just getting to know other moms, getting to invite them to the Bible study, getting to talk to them about what they believe. And we've met 3 families through that we've started to build relationships with. We've got their contact info. They want to have play dates with the boys. So that's kind of what we're doing now. We use our cute kids because that's why the Lord gave them to us. Not really, but part of the reason why. And so so that's just kind of been a really big inlet into meeting people in the area is the boys, and Grayson loves meeting new people. So it's just been a really big blessing to be able to hang out with other moms, but not just to hang out with them and build a friendship, but to be able to witness to them and possibly, hopefully eventually bring them to the Bible study, but most importantly to witness to them and to let them know that, you know, the Lord loves them and to give them the gospel. And so that's kind of what we're doing right now, and I'm sure Nick will fill in most of the other gaps as we go along.
All right, so to kind of start an update of I think I unmuted it right as anyways. To kind of give an update, so when we were here, it's kind of crazy thinking back on everything that's happened in the last couple of years. When we were here, we obviously had Grayson, and immediately after we took a vacation from here and went to go visit my parents in Illinois. And that was August of 2020. And I had asked them, while I was there, I had asked my home pastor, Sam Waterloo, I said, hey, could I meet with you and just talk about the future? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so we sat down and talked for probably 4 hours. And over the course of that conversation, I just said to him, I said, hey, eventually I want to be planted as a church planter, but I want to do it out of Sauk Trail, out of my home church, because this is where I learned the basis of everything that I know is here. And out of honor and respect towards the people that helped raise me, I want to be planted out of this church. And so we just generally talked, and he said to me, okay, well, that's definitely in the plan for the future of the church, and we're looking at 5 to 7 years. Well, to give, it's just funny because now here we are 3 years later and we're in the middle of it. And so he said, yeah, 5 to 7 years we'll look at it and we'll just keep up with you until then. And so then we finished up our time here and moved to Texas. And so while we were in Texas, the pastor there said, all right, I really want to focus on honing your teaching because you're a decent preacher, but you can't teach to save your life. And so I started teaching there, and I was doing really good, and the Lord was really growing us there. And we had a couple trials while we were there in Texas, including we lost a baby and a couple other things. And it really just started to mature us even faster. And I'm sure any of you that are parents understand that when you have a kid, it automatically starts to mature you a lot faster. But then different situations like that, and then just really just serving there and getting used to the grind of preaching all the time. One of the biggest growth opportunities I had there was, he said, all right, I don't want you to start studying yet, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to have you preach Sunday morning, Wednesday night, then Sunday night, Wednesday night, Sunday morning, and you can't start studying until the Wednesday before that Sunday. And I was like, okay. And so it was just intense, packed in study, and there was a lot of other things going on at that time. And so it was just a lot of growth opportunity to really learn logistics in the church. Pastor's wife helped me with some financial stuff of the church and how they run things and everything, and that helped a lot. But then we were there in about, it was January of 21, correct? No, 22. Right around January of 22, he said, you know, Brother Nick, I've been really praying about this. I think you're ready. I'm going to talk to your pastor in Chicago, but I think you're ready. And so I was like, okay, whatever. He said 7 years, so they're probably not ready. And he talked to him, and Pastor Sam called me and said, yeah, we've been praying about it, and we were going to have you come in September, but I think it's good that you come in May. And so it was just kind of mind-blowing that 2 years previous we had talked about the possibility of 7 years in the future planning a church, and now it's from January to May, you're moving to Chicago and you're starting a church. And so it was just amazing to just see how the Lord orchestrated everything and just how things just started falling into place. Starting with my home church, Sauk Trail Baptist Temple, they went through their missions budget, and through COVID, they never missed a beat. In fact, their offerings increased, and they don't know why. They don't know how, they don't know why. But through the COVID time, their offerings increased, as well as they gained a lot of people that were watching online that had never been to a church service, that were tithing and giving missions, and it was just insane. And through the COVID time, they had promised, for Faith Promise, that they were going to give about $350,000 in missions money, and they exceeded it by $8,000 by the end of their missions year. And so they were flying. They were like, this is amazing. And then when they took Faith Promise again this year, they exceeded the exceeded amount by another $10,000. And so the missions budget has just grown there. And because of that, they decided that what they were going to do for Aaliyah and I, what our model was going to be that they were going to take us on for full-time support as if we are staff at Sauk Trail. So we get $5,000 a month from Sauk Trail to do what we're doing in Wheeling. And so in essence, what that means for me is I'm full-time in the Wheeling area just trying to reach people. And once a week, we either call in for a staff meeting. At first, I was driving south every Monday morning to do the staff meeting, and that was more of a blessing for me. It could be seen as a burden because it's an hour and a half away, but it was a blessing for me because I got sharpening time with the staff there. My good friend, one of my best friends in the ministry, Chris Ferguson, is on staff there, so I'd get to see them every week and just talk with them and kind of formulate what we were going to do next every Monday, and I get to talk with them. So now I report in every Monday. I have a weekly report that I submit to them, and what we're just trying to do is just trying to build a base. And so what we decided we're going to do is we're going to start as a Bible study on Wednesday nights. And what we did was we found a community center right in the heart of Wheeling, and we'll show more of the pictures later on the video. But we found the community center, and what they are able to do for us is they charge you per hour to rent the rooms there. And it was $45 an hour, but you get a half hour before to set up and 15 minutes after to clean up. And so we get about an hour and 45 minutes to get everything set up and ready and then get out of there at the end of our Bible study time. And so we'll meet there on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8. And we've just been trying to, again, just grow a base. Just get some people in there, get talking with them, see where they're at. And we've been marching through the book of John. And so each week I've got a lesson ready to go, and there have been weeks where nobody showed up, and that's okay. And occasionally what we'll have is we'll have some people from my home church, Sauk Trail, come out and visit with us. And they'll be there on Wednesday nights, and they'll be there to support us. And we go through the Bible study the same way we would if anybody else was there, ask all the same questions and everything. And so we have a sweet time on Wednesday nights where occasionally it's just my wife and I and the boys, and we just pray over if nobody shows up, we either go through it because I want to stay sharp. I don't want to get lazy, and if nobody's there, let's just not do our notes this week. But occasionally we'll go through that. But most of the time what happens is Aaliyah and I will spend a special time of prayer where we pray for the community center, everybody in the area, and we just pour our hearts out to the Lord that he would bring people to us. Not because we just want to grow it, but ultimately because we want to see more people saved, and we want to see more disciples made of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so what we try and do is we get out there in any way that we can. At first, I was hitting it hard on door knocking and just handing out tracts. And when we were first researching the Wheeling area, it said the demographics online from the government said that it was 96% white, and then like 2% Asian and 2% other ethnicities. And when we showed up, that is not the case. It is anything but that. When we showed up, it seemed like every single door we went to was Spanish speaking only. And it was very difficult at first to even just get people to talk to you because no English, and then they just shut the door, or they'd just take it and be, okay. But you could tell they're not understanding what we were saying. And the longer that we've been there in Wheeling, the more we've realized that there's Ukrainian refugees there, there's a Russian section, there's Polish people, we met a lady from Kyrgyzstan the other day. We met a lady from there. It's just a melting pot. There's so many different people there. And from what we can tell, most of them work in the medical field in the city. And so they commute into the city. And so most of the days they're not there. And the ones that are there, the people that are still in Wheeling during the middle of the day, are the parents. And that's where, as Aaliyah said, we kind of changed our focus to, okay, we got to find people, especially in the cold Chicago winter months where the wind chill can get down to 40 below zero. We had to find a way to find people. And so what we've done really since the beginning of the year is just find ways to find people. That includes, there have been times where we've just walked around Target or Walmart just looking for people to talk to. And even in that, you'll find 3 people that don't speak English and 1 person that does. And just finding people where they're at. And the biggest blessing has been the libraries and the parks that we found, the indoor parks, especially since it's cold, to just find people and just talk with them and see where they're at. And the blessing has been is in the past couple months, we've had multiple people just start talking to us a lot more about, oh, that's cool, you're in the area to plant a church. You don't always get that. I mean, I go out door to door, and I'd have occasionally people talk to me, and we had maybe 2 or 3 instances that I can remember where there was gentlemen or people that were like, oh, it's pretty neat what you're doing. But they never talked any more than that. They didn't want to go any deeper than that. And so now we've really been finding parents and parents of kids and younger families, and even just people that are, even being at the library, just finding other people that are studying. And they're like, well, what are you studying? And just talk with them over that stuff. And just starting those conversations and building relationships. So in addition to that, because of the financial situation in Wheeling, mostly because of the gas and egg prices, because Grayson eats like 10 eggs a day. Because of those prices, I had to supplement our income. And so what I did was I went online and I was trying to look for a job that would work around my church schedule so that I could still work 9 to 5 for the church. And what I found was a small hardware store. It's a decent sized chain, but it's mostly in the north to northeast is Menards, and that's the company I work for. It's a small hardware store, and I get to work there 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. every morning, and so it worked perfectly with my schedule. I'm able to go in. I'm just a morning stalker. But when I was walking in, they said, so why did you find this job? What's your purpose? I said, well, my primary purpose in the area is to plant a church, and that's what I'm all about, and this just so happens to work around that schedule. And so right from the beginning, I was able to tell them why I was there and what I was doing. And they said, so planting a church, what does that mean? And I said that on purpose because I know most people don't know what planting a church means. And so I was able to explain to my 2 managers, the head of the store, right from the beginning, okay, I'm here to tell people about Jesus, and this is what I believe, and just go through the gospel with them right there, the first interview. And they were like, well, you're a sharp guy, we want to hire you on. And immediately after that, I've been able to witness, as much as it could be seen as a burden to work bivocational in that sense, it has been such a blessing to see those relationships at Menards, because I'm the only guy that doesn't drink and doesn't cuss. We have another guy that works there that's a Jehovah's Witness, and he tries to jam everything he believes down everybody's throat. And I mean, he's militant about it. And yet he's walking around and he's cussing and he's talking about these horrible movies that he's watching and all these other things. And because of him coming to work with us and him trying to do that, I've had the other employees say, you know, you're different. When you started working here, I thought you were going to be just like him, but you're different. And they can see the difference in the way that I act, the way that I carry myself. And just a real quick testimony about one of the guys I work with. His name is Craig. And when I first started working there, he said, I'm a Jew. And I don't want to hear what you have to say. I'm a Jew. That's it. And the longer I was working with him, I was like, okay, he doesn't practice. He's not anything like, any other Jew that I've ever met. So I want to figure out more about this guy. But occasionally I'd start to mention something about the Bible, and he'd be like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Well, this gentleman that was a Jehovah's Witness started working with us again. He had to take some time off of work. He started working with us again, and I've been working with this guy for almost 6 months now, Craig. And when this gentleman came back that was the Jehovah's Witness, he said, Nick, I thought you were going to be just like him, and I thought you were going to try and jam everything you believed down my throat, but you've been patient with me. And he just looked at me, and he's like, I never really practiced anything, and for 6 months, I haven't been able to get him to say anything about religion. But this gentleman comes back that has bad testimony, And my good testimony was able to shine forth, and he just said, here's my history with church, and just opened up. And that was right before we left to come here, and just opened up and told me a lot about his history and some of what he believes. And it was an opportunity that finally I got to see a little bit of progress there, because for months it was just, he was like, man, this world is messed up. And I would say things like, well, the Bible says, and he'd be like, whatever, Nick. And he'd just walk away. But now he's finally starting to make progress there. I also work with another man named Jorge, and he has been talking with me quite a bit. And he's a Catholic, and he's a devout Catholic. But through talking with him, he believes what we believe about salvation. He believes that it's only a one-time thing. You don't need to constantly be going to the priest. And so he doesn't go as faithfully to the Catholic Church. And so I'm praying that he would come and start learning at the Bible study, because he's saved. I believe for sure that he's saved based on his testimony. But he just cannot get out of the Catholic religion. He sees it as a slight to everything that he's believed over his lifetime. And so it's just neat interactions like that I get. All my managers, assistant managers, and the department heads of the store, because of my work ethic, they send me to all the different areas of the store if they need help. And so I'm the one that they call most of the time to help. And so I've gotten to meet most of the whole store, and all of them are like, okay, this is your part-time job, right? And I was like, yes. And so what do you do for a living? Well, let me tell you what I do for a living. And so just about everybody at the store I work at knows that I'm here to be a pastor. I'm here to start a church. And ultimately, that I'm just here to help if you need it. I'm right here. And I've had one lady that comes up to me just about every morning. She comes over and talks, and she just like, so what's going on with the church? She doesn't necessarily want to come, but she wants to know what's going on with the church. And so all these people, we've got these relationships building up, and then being able to talk with the family Aaliyah was talking about, just talking with them, and it's Dave and Ann and their daughter Gianna, and we were building the relationship, doing as much as we could. And this past Tuesday before we left, we met up with them, and it was like it was a family decision. He was talking with me the whole time, and then he was standing there with his wife and daughter in his arm, and he said, well, I just want you guys to know that we're going to be coming whenever you guys get back from Washington. And it was just a huge thing, just such an encouragement, because to be honest with you all, it was difficult, because it was from June up until December, we had no prospects. I mean, we were trying, we were pounding it, getting as hard as we could, pounding the pavement, just getting after it, trying to, and again, like Aaliyah said, we've knocked or put a flyer on every door in Wheeling, and just occasionally, what denomination are you? And I'll tell them that we're Baptist, and no response after that. And so it was just months of just grinding it and trying to do whatever we could, trying to either get some social media stuff going, or trying to do some community events, and not a whole lot worked. And then in December, we said, you know what, we want to do some caroling. And so based off of what we learned while we were here with you all doing caroling in the wintertime, we went to a Starbucks. And it's a Starbucks that's the community center's here, and it's right across the parking lot from the community center. And in my head, as I was going in, I was like, this is Starbucks. They're practically anti-God. I don't know if there's going to be anything that comes of this. And I walked in and I asked them, and they're like, well, our manager isn't here, so you'll have to ask her. So I emailed her, and I just said, hey, we're a Bible study. That's what we're about. We want to be a blessing to our community. We'd like to carol outside. She said, that would be amazing. We would love that. Come on out. We'll give the kids some free hot chocolate. We'll spoil you guys. And I mean, from the second we showed up, they gave us a spot on their little porch right out front of their Starbucks. And the employees were over the moon that we were there. They were so excited that they were there. They were like, this is so cool that you're doing this. We had a gentleman come out, and he said, hey, I'm a pastor in the area, and they're more of an evangelical free type organization. But he said, I'm a pastor in the area. He goes, I've never seen anybody do anything like this in this area. This is a huge blessing that you guys are just out here being a light in this area. He said, I live in the area. but the church that I'm at is about 20 or 30 minutes from here. He goes, I've never seen anybody doing any ministry in this area. He said, you guys are doing a good work. Keep it up. And so from that encouragement, and then all the people we got to talk to that day, it was just, they were so happy. I mean, you know how it is at Christmas time. People are just excited that you're out caroling and singing stuff like that. But it was a neat opportunity for us to minister to the area. And then one last small thing before I'll open it up for any questions is we had our neighbors when we moved there. There was I was unloading all of our stuff. I mean, we had the truck parked on the sidewalk. I was unloading all of our stuff into the building, and there was a little boy walking with his mom, and Grayson just walked out and went, "Hi!" and just started talking with this boy, and him and this little boy started just this little relationship right there. I mean, we were literally unloading the truck. We were there for all of a day. And Grayson started talking with him. And so we struck up a conversation with the mom. And things have been busy over the summer with them and everything, but slowly building the relationship there. Well, right before, about a month ago now, I think it was a month ago now, we decided that we were like, okay, we really want to hone in on this family. We've been talking with them for a while. They haven't necessarily shown interest in the Bible study, but I want to invest in these people. And so Aaliyah and I, based on one of our staff members at Sauk Trail had suggested, hey, let's just just work on your relationships and work on building those relationships. Even if that just means talking to random people and inviting them over for dinner. It means more to people than you realize. And so we said to them, we were like, hey, this Saturday, you want to come over and have some dinner and let the boys hang out and everything? And they said, yeah, sure. And so we had them over, and we didn't know how it was going to go. You know, it could be awkward at times to just randomly invite someone who you're not necessarily the best friends with or anything and don't know them that well. And we had them over, and from the second they walked in, they just opened up and just started talking with us. And they loved it to the extent that while we're there talking with them, he said, and he has always been a little more standoff and not as much engaging. He said, man, we got to hang out more. This is amazing. This is awesome. Like, we got to do this more often. And I was like, yeah, we do. This is great. And so we were able, and they asked questions about the Bible study while they were over. Of course, Grayson and their son Ryder, they just had a great time. But we've had so many unique opportunities to just use where we're at and the stage of life that we're in to reach people. And it's really encouraged me a lot that every opportunity you get, you've got to get out there and you've got to be about, they say it every Sunday at Sauk Trail, you got to be about making disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ. That's it. That's what our purpose is out there in Wheeling, and that's why we're there. And so it's been refreshing these last 2 months to be able to see some progress finally. And it's been a lot of prayer and a lot of time in prayer with the staff guys and just really just bolstering ourselves up and saying, okay, even if no one shows up, it's going to be a blessing. But now that we're starting to see some progress, it's just a huge blessing to see that God's working so much in the background. And He has been for months, and we just haven't been able to see it. But to see it working and to see it moving has just been such an encouragement and a blessing, and we're so excited for what the Lord has ahead of us. And so I believe we're going to show the video just before we do some questions. So if you want to play that up, Reese. So as you saw there in some of the slides, in a 10-mile radius, there's only 4 like-minded Baptist churches, and we've been able to see a couple of those churches, but they're relatively small churches, and it's a big area. There's a lot going on, and I've had a lot of people from Sauk Trail tell us that they hear all the time on the news, and it's true that Wheeling is the biggest business hub in the area right now, and it's growing. Businesses are flocking to Wheeling, and there's parts of Wheeling that are just massive industrial parts, and businesses are just flocking to that area. And as a result, there's 2 apartment complexes that were shown there that were just built within the last 5 to 10 years. And I mean, they're huge complexes and tons of people in those. And it's just seeming like Wheeling is about to boom. And that's what everybody on the news everywhere else is saying. And so the first visitors that you saw there were family members of someone from Sauk Trail that came about a month into the Bible study. And ever since then, we weren't able to get their contact information that time. And since then, we haven't seen them again, but we've been praying. And so this last Wednesday night, that gentleman who was related to them took over the Bible study for us while we were here. And he invited them, and unfortunately, they were sick. The wife had some things to deal with, and he wasn't able to join. And so we're just praying that they'd come back. And they were an awesome couple, and we're praying that they'd come back. But other than that, we've just had so much going on in Wheeling, and just trying to, through those difficult months in the middle, we were trying to stay encouraged. But it's been such a blessing to just see how God has moved in the last couple months. So any questions? Yes. Yes. From Sauk Trail? I would say the nights that they show up for the Bible study are a huge blessing, because there were weeks where, if I'm being honest, and I mean you all are like family, if I'm being honest, there were nights where people didn't show up, and Aaliyah and I would cry, literally cry tears, because we're just, it's difficult. It's difficult when you're pouring your heart into something and nobody shows up. And yet, when they're there, and they're not able to be there all the time, and we understand that there's some issues sometimes where people can't make it. And when they're there, it's just such a refreshment. Just to have somebody there to talk to share the progress that's going on. And we're there every Sunday. So part of our model of what we're doing is to build excitement for the church plant. We're there on Sunday mornings and Sunday nights. And then, so we'll drive out there. We'll stay with my parents for the afternoon, which is great. They get to see their grandkids. And then we'll come home on Sunday nights after service. But I would say the biggest encouragement is 2 things. When they're there, when they're able to come out and be with us, that's a huge encouragement. But the fact that they can support us $5,000 a month is unheard of. And most pastors that I've talked to have said, no church is doing missions like this. And it's a blessing because, again, the missions budget allowed for it. And that's what they were most excited about was, hey, we've got the funds to do it. Let's do it. And so the fact that they're able to support us as if I'm full-time staff is just a huge, massive blessing, to where I don't have to be burdened with, okay, let me get some more supporting churches here and there. I don't have to be burdened with that, because our overhead is, each week we pay $50 now. And through our relationship with through our relationship with the community center, they said, we have to raise our prices for everybody, but we're going to give you, even though we don't live directly in Wheeling, we live just outside, like 2 minutes outside of Wheeling. They said, even though that's the case, we're going to give you the resident discount, because we know you guys, and you guys have been awesome tenants to have in. You never leave it dirty or anything like that. And so they give us the discount rate, but it's $50 a week. So we don't have many costs, and we've just been able to. So yeah, those 2 things I would say is when they're there, and then the massive amount of support they're able to give us. Yeah, Johnny.
Does your sending church have a plan of when they want you to do Sundays there, or is that?
Yeah. So it's not left up in the air. He's got phases that he wants to do it in. So right now, obviously, we're in phase 1, and that's growing a base and getting people into the Bible study, as well as bolstering with the church. Okay, I'm your man. I'm here to do the work, and making sure that they know that they can have confidence in me. because I've been gone for years, so they don't necessarily know me as well as they once did. And so I get the opportunity to preach and teach occasionally at Sauk Trail. And what I do in the teaching times is I'll take the notes that we do on Bible study on Wednesday nights and teach them to whatever Sunday school class I'm in. And that way they get to see what we're doing each week. And that every time I've done that, they've said, man, this is amazing because we get to actually see what you would do on a Wednesday night, and that's awesome. And so we've just been able, so yeah, if that answers your question. Yeah, any other, yeah.
Follow-up question. So that's phase one. What's the phase gate?
So, yes, so,
Requirement to get to phase two.
so phase two would be once we have a base, we're going to start automatically on Sunday mornings. And right now what we're considering is because of one of the things we're considering in the fact that people have not been coming is if Wednesday nights are just too hectic for some people. A lot of people will devote time to a church activity on a Sunday because that's when church happens in people's minds. And so we're considering moving it to Sunday mornings. He wanted that to be a phase two thing where we move to Sunday mornings, call it North Point Baptist Church instead of calling it the North Point Bible Study. And then, so the idea would be for phase two, we switch to Sunday mornings, call it that. I get ordained in that time, and then we start talking to other pastors and who wants to join up. And so right now, as far as support, we're very closed in what we're doing with that. So Aaliyah's dad, their church supports us, as well as Southside, which is their sending church. And then Sauk Trail supports us. It's just those three churches supporting us, as well as an old family friend in Florida that supports us like just a little bit a month, and it's a huge blessing. But we're keeping our support pretty tight. But after we get into phase two, we'll branch out and we'll actually start going to like a church planners conference or going to places like that, because right now we don't need it necessarily. We're very, very low cost, very low maintenance in that department, and we're just basically it's flyers and our rent, and that's it, and it's $50 a week. And so phase two would be that. Phase three would be just fully out on our own. That would be what it is. And so in order to get into phase two, he wants us to have one or two solid families that are always coming, and then we'll move into, okay, like this is moving now, so let's see if they want to start on Sunday morning. If those families want to start as a church, I'll say, why shouldn't we start as a church? And then just move right into it. So that's kind of where we're at on that. And so we've been making progress on that and moving towards that, but just whenever we get a couple families in and just start moving in that direction. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. So we were looking at the whole north side of Chicago. I had a burden on it because just before I went to Heartland, I had worked up in that area, and I was driving around. I was driving a bread truck, and everywhere I was driving, I wasn't seeing any Baptist churches, and the Lord had started to prick my heart for the north side. And so we traveled up there, and right before we came to Sauk Trail, I had a few places on my mind, and that was Des Plaines, Illinois, and then the surrounding areas. So like Skokie, Wheeling, a bunch of the other areas around there. And Des Plaines, if you know, is right about where O'Hare Airport is. So that massive airport takes up like a chunk of Des Plaines. And so I had thought, okay, that's a bigger area. Let's research and start there. As I began researching, there's two Baptist churches in Des Plaines. And I was like, okay, I didn't know that. I didn't previously know that. And so we came out here to look around the area, and so we were like, okay, let's look at a couple different places. So we drove in, and we were looking around Des Plaines, and we were like, okay, this is nice. And I mean, as soon as we drove into Wheeling, two things overwhelmed me. Number one was the absolute spiritual lack in the entire area. You can tell it kind of feels the same way as Bellevue in that everybody has what they need, and they don't want anything else. They don't need God necessarily, and you could sense that the second you drove into Wheeling. And then the second thing was, as soon as we drove in, it was like my heart was just wrenched for this city, and that I knew for sure that it was like, Lord, this is it. It was just as soon as we pulled in, I just immediately was tethered to the area and just driving around seeing the people. It was just immediately, as soon as we drove in, we were like, this is it. And what was amazing was Aaliyah's dad got to be there with us that day that we drove around, as well as my pastor, Sam Waterloo. and everybody in the van felt the same exact thing at the same time. We were like, this is it. This is the area. Just from driving around to seeing, there's a lot of Korean and foreign churches, as if you saw from the slides, Chinese churches, things like that. But there's not really even English churches there at all. And so then the other thing in study that I found was that if you go 20 minutes north, you'll find the First Baptist Church north of us. Past that, farther north past that, you can't find anything until you get to Wisconsin, and that's another 45 minutes north. And so that northern area is very void of good Baptist churches, and you'll just find a big gap there. And so that was kind of what really started us there, and then just having Aaliyah there, and we really just as soon as we pulled into town, we were like, this is it. I'm just attached to the area, just knew that this is where God would want us. And then it just felt like everything fell in place from there. Where we were living was just the perfect location for that area. And then finding the community center, they've just been so gracious the whole time. They know exactly what we're about, and they're not against it. They're just totally open to all of it. And so it's just absolutely incredible how God just laid it all out. So yeah, do you want to close it down, or do we have time for one more? We have time for one more. Okay, any other questions? Yes? I would say it would be the Bible churches are big out there, but I don't know exactly what they believe because they're mostly Korean or Chinese. It's kind of like a little bit. We have, I think, 2 Vietnamese churches, 3 Korean churches, and 2 Chinese churches. So it's really crazy, but most of them are either Pentecostal or Bible church. A lot of them just put Bible church on the door, is what they'll say. But then the other one in the dominating religion in the entire area is Catholicism, I would say. Most people I talk to, especially because of the Hispanic population, most people I talk to would be Catholic. So yeah, if that answers your question. Any other questions? Good questions. You're keeping me on my toes. All right. Well, Pastor, there we go.
Amen. Well, it's exciting to hear what's happening there, and looking forward to hearing from Brother Nick as he preaches in the next hour. So we're going to set you loose. You got to endure the smells and the temptations. Thankfully, there's some snacks, and you can grab some coffee, and then we'll start again at 10:30.